Pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, the Bastrop City Council will hold a regular meeting on August 9, 2016 at the City Council Chambers, 1311 Chestnut Street, Bastrop, to consider the following call to order. I will call us to order. We have a quorum here. Ms. McAnally is still out of town, but we'll be back for our next meeting. I'm also aware that we have two distinguished newcomers to our midst. Marvin Townsend, our interim city manager, is present with us, and our interim attorney, David Bragg, is present. And we are moving ahead with, I think, a sense of real stability as we go into a number of issues that we need to do in the next few months that will help lay the foundation for the next few years. This council, including Councilmember McAnally present, who's not present tonight, will move ahead with the kind of confidence and unity that I think will keep us moving and make the community proud. We will need your help and the help of all citizens, those who elected us to get those jobs done. So we will begin, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I call on our distinguished member of the press, Mary Huber, to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I will offer an invocation. To the God that each of us worships, we offer our time and ourselves this night. We give thanks for the presence of Marvin and David with us, for all the citizens gathered here, and above all for the council that undertakes the work that our citizens have elected us to do. With the prayer that you will keep all of us mindful of the great spirit of this community, the many, many years, almost 2 centuries of work we have done together to build to this point and to help us move forward in the building of the future. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Please be seated. We have no presentations or proclamations. Councilmember McAnally is, as I said, out of town. The Comprehensive Planning Steering Committee reported to us recently with a great report. They're moving forward. A couple of announcements just for you to notice. We're going to have what I hope is a wonderful celebration for Mike Talbot as he retires from us. Date listed there. Also a wonderful celebration for the commemoration of the 5th anniversary of the Bastrop Complex fires. Listed information on page 1 of the packet. Also information for signing up for reverse 911. Instead of you calling 911, if there's an emergency, 911 calls you, but we only have access to landlines. So here's a way for you to register your cell phone so you will receive information. And do we have anything to distribute at this point? To us, thank you very much. You have seen, that's very pertinent since he is now our interim city attorney, resignation of Mr. Bragg from the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd like to call on the city managers to explain something that I think has not been as clear as it might have been about one of our properties or former properties, as the case may be.
I had the occasion to look into some of the background about the property on 921 Main Street, the one that runs from Main Street to Water Street. And I thought maybe just a restatement of what I've looked at might be helpful to all of us as we understand and think about that property. The fire was in 2003. It left 2 common walls and a rear wall. It was purchased by the city in 2009, but the city bought the whole lot all the way through from Main Street to Water Street. The building itself only occupies about 1/3 of the lot, And the lot was primarily purchased to add parking and to landscape the back. And that project is moving along and should be before the city council within the next few weeks to go out for bids. So I hadn't realized that 2/3 of that lot was in the right-of-way and the alley, and only 1/3 is the structure. So when you hear what the city paid $235,000 for it, that's the whole lot, not just the structure that burned. I thought that might be helpful as you understand what's going to happen in the next few months.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will have a meeting next week. We have a lot going on, and so we're going to have a budget hearing, or not a hearing, but a budget meeting next Tuesday, so the council can ask questions, make decisions, and so forth, and also to deal with a few other items of importance. I think, Marvin, the city manager's report was mostly written by Steve Adcock because you were not here. So I just wanted to say if there's anything you want to highlight and ask the council if there's anything they want to ask you about in terms of city manager's report.
There's nothing I want to highlight. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to pursue them.
Council? I will say this, in the brief time you've been here and the 5 or 6 hours we've spent together, and other people I've met with you in common with others, the impression has been the council made a good decision on hiring you. I think you're going to do a very good job for us in the interim process. You've got a vast amount of knowledge, keen insight, and it's fresh face. So we're glad to have you here. I think it's going to go very well. Thank you so much. On the consent agenda, we're going to pull item A1 that we had between Ann and me, we had a typo in terms of this appointment. Patrick Cannell is going to be appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We got a little typo there, so I'll bring that up next week to make sure that it's all copacetic. There are council members who want to pull out certain items for us to discuss separately other than A1.
I had one question on A5.
Okay, we'll pull that out. Anybody else? It would be appropriate for there to be a motion that we approve by one vote item A1A and 1B through A8 with the exception of item A5.
I so move.
We, Marvin's of the opinion that we don't necessarily have to call the roll on everything, especially when it's fairly obvious. If there's a no vote, well, we've got something wrong here. So I'm going to say, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Hearing no no's, this is a unanimous vote and it complies with our effort on the consent agenda. Item A5, approval of request to accept public improvements for Pecan Park, Section 4, located west of Childers Drive within the city limits of the city of Bastrop. Mr. Brandon, would you, we'll start with Mr. De La Rosa's question.
Thank you, Mayor. The one question I had, this was, it's kind of confusing to me because the last meeting that we had, Mr. McDowell and his group in with Pecan Park, I think the engineer was Mr. Bratton, I believe that was his name, and we discussed some changes to the, especially to the drainage issues that they were having over there. So I was looking on page 22, and you talked about in the first paragraph, visual observations was made to ensure the project is complete with regards to roadway, utility grading, and drainage facilities. Is that inclusive of the changes that were made 2 weeks ago?
Yes, so the section that's before you tonight is section 4, and the section we were talking about at the last council meeting was section 5B. And so I'll show you on the map, but section 4 is over here, and that's what the contractor's been working on since I believe February was when they received the original approval on the final plat. What we were talking about as far as the amendments and the new drainage plans, that had to do with section 5B, which is over here.
So I guess I go back to my original question. There will be no drainage issues on section 4?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
It's in a completely different location on the property.
Okay. Answer my question.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
I would, I move to approve A5 on the consent agenda.
There's a second. The motion is to approve A5 as printed on the, was on the consent agenda, now is A5. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No? There are no no's. The secretary reminds me that I've skipped over citizens' comments, which I will now go back to. First person is Judith Hoover.
Good evening. Judy Hoover here. I live on Wilson Street. Shop Bastrop. That was what the button worn by Alan Poppy said, and he wore it faithfully to remind us to keep Bastrop dollars in Bastrop. I've always liked that idea, so why not a local city attorney? According to the city's CFO, in a recent 12-month period, $1,041,790 was paid to 8 lawyers from Frisco, Dallas, Fort Worth, Amarillo, Lubbock, Round Rock, and Austin. In the case of J.C. Brown, her reported hourly rate of $155 equated to her invoicing the city for an average of 58.67 hours per week, each week for 52 weeks of the year. Our neighboring cities spend between $4,000 and $50,000 per year on attorney fees. Bastrop's not that special to warrant over $1 million a year in legal fees. That brings me to change. It's difficult for most people and more of a challenge for those governing our city. The recent changes in personnel came much too slowly for me and yet too soon for others. I commend the council for taking the steps needed to rein in the unsustainable legal expenses, almost 1/10 of the entire yearly budget for the city of Bastrop. For their decision to hire a new city manager and assistant city manager. As you may have surmised, I like the idea of paying a local attorney to look after the interests of the city of Bastrop. Let's keep Bastrop dollars in Bastrop, where we need more splash pads, a skate park, proper drainage and infrastructure, more art and culture, and anything but more lawsuits. Thank you for your service and for doing the hard work to make the city of Bastrop more transparent and a better service to the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoover. Joe Brady Tuck.
Mr. Mayor, Council, City Manager, I want to echo the comments of Judy Hoover. I live on 1503 Wilson Street. I'm a practicing lawyer here. I've been practicing law for 46 years. I'm a fifth-generation resident of this county. I want to congratulate the council on the hiring of my friend David Bragg. Those of you that are not familiar with his qualifications, he's one of the most distinguished lawyers in the state of Texas. He's a former Assistant Attorney General. He wrote the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act when he was working for former Attorney General John Hill. He's an acknowledged expert in that subject as well as many others. We are fortunate to have him as a city attorney and at a huge cost savings over our previous city attorney. I calculate that J.C. Brown, although she publicized a artificially low billing rate of $155 an hour, she collected about $400,000 last year from the city and another $65,000 from the BEDC for a total remuneration of $465,000 in 1 year, compared to the second highest paid city attorney in Texas, who is the city attorney of Houston, who made $250,000 a year. And this is a city of 8,000 people. To be paying that kind of amount of money, which is about 1/10 of the whole city budget, at a time when I was sitting here, when all the victims of the recent flooding came by, and we don't have the money to do anything with Gills Branch, but we've got $1 million a year to spend on legal fees. I don't think so. I think we are so fortunate to have David Bragg, who is going to save this city immense terms of money and provide the best legal representation that we've ever had in this city. And I want to congratulate the council on their actions in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tuck. Sean Pledge.
Seems to be the topic of the evening. I too want to ask a question about the city attorney, and I think very highly of Mr. Bragg. My question was, at the last meeting, when y'all came out of exec, I asked you what parameters you used to select the attorney. And I wasn't really very comfortable with the answer I got, which is in today's paper. It was, we hope to find someone local with background on city business. We felt like we needed to bring someone in immediately, someone who is sensitive to the issues in Bastrop. That said, I wondered why a letter noting the severe time constraint and the preferential interest of someone with municipal law functionality wasn't sent to the Bastrop County Bar Association for its immediate input. Why didn't you send more than 3 letters out? Had you done that, I think my overriding question wouldn't even have to be asked. And that is this: if the mayor's personal relationship with the appointed interim city attorney initiated his recusal from the approval process in the first place, then won't every decision point handled by the attorney necessitate the mayor's recusal as well? That's my question. I understand that you can't respond, but that's my question. My other thing was not anything to do with city attorney at all. My other question was about the budget, and maybe I need to ask it at the budget, but maybe I've been on a rock somewhere. But what happened to the money for the Y? I mean, where did it go? Has there been public discussion about that? Did it get allocated somewhere else, or did it just vaporize? Will the city not have a relationship with the Y anymore? So I don't know the answer to either one of those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pledge. Jill Helmkamp.
Hi, I'm Jill Helmkamp. I've never done anything like this before, but I'd like to think that I represent all those people that are sitting out there tonight that are hardworking citizens of the city of Bastrop and frankly might be afraid to come up here and say anything after all the attacks that we read in the paper, and no discredit to this council that we have here. I just have nothing but praises for y'all. We've worked very hard voting each and every one of you in, and I thank you. I count it a great victory, and so do the people that I represent of the resigning of the city attorney, given by the facts and numbers that any layman could easily process. And I think that Judy Hoover was very good in laying out all the numbers and statistics. She did the legwork. There's no need for me to do that. So again, I think I'm thankful for that. I believe in what Judy said. Let's keep the Bastrop City Council more transparent. I'd like to see some teenagers come up here, but with some of the conduct that has been displayed in past months, now not currently, I would probably be ashamed for them to hear the slinging and all that's going on. I recently attended, I love community meetings, I love this community. I raised 4 sons here. I'm probably one of the most titleless people in this city. One is now due to this great community and community of teachers. One's an anesthesiologist. One is computer science right now in college. And one is in maritime engineering at UT Galveston. And I had one child that was a little wayward in this community, and due to the pool of our community and all these good people, he called today, he said, Mama, he joined the Army, he said, I want to be a helicopter pilot. It's going to take me 6 years. So I count that a victory, okay? I like victories. And so I recently went to an Al-Anon meeting in our community, a great group of people, and I just like the way that they conducted their meetings, and so I've seen a lot of progress in this area. So there's a saying that says it's the little foxes that spoil the vineyard. So the citizens here are moving on. We recently had a flood. It was no big deal. I personally was flooded out. My income is maybe $1,000 a month. I'm not able to work this summer. I don't have a studio. I'm pulling through, juggling like these other flood. Our claims aren't big enough to really matter. But again, it's the little foxes that spoil spoil the vineyard. So we're recovering, from that. And I just wanted to address that. I know that the city council is just doing all that they can and working very, very, very hard to address our flooding issues here in the city of Bastrop. But I'm going to continue coming to meetings. I've certainly enjoyed them. I'm learning a lot. I walk out of this space and Jill, what did they say? I said, oh God, I got to put it in Latin terms. So anyway, I thank you and I commend you, City Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Elkamp. Victor Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. Victor Gonzalez, I live at 1406 Wilson. I wanted to thank y'all for the hard work y'all put in the last few months with trying to straighten our city out with the abrupt resignations by the city manager and city attorney. I know y'all had to make some tough decisions, but it's hard, and I don't know that the public realizes how much dedication and how many hours y'all have to put in to prepare for these meetings. But I want to thank you for trying to make the city of Bastrop a better place to live. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor. Lee Harrell.
Good evening. My name is Lee Harrell. I'm here tonight to point out, as Sean did earlier, I noticed in the budget discussions that there has not been mention of the YMCA on the budget. So I just wanted to voice some concern I have with the recreation portion of the budget. It appears, and I'm not making any suggestions or accusations here, I'm just kind of showing what it looks like to me. It looks like there's a policy shift that might be taking place with the city, and if it is, I hope it's something that will be discussed a lot more in depth. But that shift being away from a partnership with the YMCA and more towards trying to handle things in-house as far as recreation. If that's the direction that the council is trying to go, I hope that conversation will be held a little bit more openly. And also, I'd want to encourage each of y'all to take the time to look at what some other communities that have had successful partnerships with the YMCA, the way that they're doing it, and the reasons why that they're having so much success. Just to name a few, I know that Burnett, Hutto, Benbrook, and even the city of Austin all have very successful partnerships that seem to help them make recreation a priority for their communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mitchell Harden.
Good evening. I'm Mitchell Harden. Kind of echoing what Lee was just saying. As a businessman and a father in the community, it does appear that there's some shift in how we're going to provide recreation going forward. So I wanted to give you an idea of some of the questions I certainly would love to hear council members ask at the upcoming budget meeting. One of which is, I've heard that the contractual services, that's what's allocated for the Y, which is roughly half the money that we gave them last year. And it looks like from the budgets on the website for the last several years. So if that's not all going to the Y, how much is, and what are the trade-offs for those cuts? So if we're going to take more of that under our control as a city, has anybody done a cost-benefit analysis? And if so, could we make that public and have a candid discussion of what we're getting for what we're paying? Because what it looks like, and excuse me if I have the wrong information, I just learned about this morning and tried to crunch some numbers real quick. But fiscal year 15 and 16, again, based on the budget that's on the website, looks like we had about $42,500 that all went to the Y to provide for recreation. And that's just a single line item there on that budget that says recreation. But the proposed budget for 2017, with personnel and non-personnel costs, it comes out to about $64,073, which is about a 50% increase. In fact, it's closer to 51%. So not only, I don't see how that could be a cost-saving measure, So again, if it's an additional cost, what are we getting for that? I think that's pretty easy for us to take on as citizens and figure out if that's the way we want to go. Another question I have is if it is a policy change, who's championing that? Not only, kind of driving it, but who's going to be responsible for implementing that? As the community grows, our kids need these programs because there are a lot of kids, especially during the summer, that don't have access to go into Austin. So having local programs is quite important. And then with all that, I would like to know if the council would be willing to present a plan if one is there, and solicit public feedback. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie Moore.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Council, Interim Manager. I want to say a couple things. One is that I have the utmost respect for our interim city attorney. I used to train their dogs. I've known him for a long time. His wife and I have some Louisiana roots. Judy Hoover's been my neighbor and my friend. We've worked together closely on, I think, a successful film commission. Work with Joe Grady Tuck right now. And I think we're kind of piling on with our former city attorney. Ms. Jones said she didn't question the hours that were billed, just the access that everybody had to her. Mr. Schiff said that he would like to see her apply to be our city attorney. So decisions have been made, whether we agree with them, whether we don't agree with them, but let's move on and let's stop piling on our former city attorney. I think that we need to move forward and stop it. And the other thing, as far as what goes on in this dais, I would much rather see differences of opinion discussed, debated, disagreed upon, and voted on in public than behind closed doors. The city, the citizens of this community deserve that. We need that. When we talk about transparency, that's one way to show that this community is transparent. You don't come here and you don't agree on everything, but when you don't, to have differences of opinion, honest differences of opinion, that's what it's about. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Have your discussions here. Be open and honest, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Let me say, we don't respond to these items that are not specifically on the agenda, but I want to refer to something I said previously, and that is that we're having a special meeting next week. A good deal of that will be a budget conversation. So council, as you would assume, would be talking about the budget and specific things on the budget. We're going to go into a brief executive session. The Bastrop City Council will meet in closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551 at Sec. to discuss the following, Section 551.074, personnel matters, and this is regarding city attorney and city manager, and we will be back, I think, fairly shortly. We're in executive session. City Council will return to its regular session. We have, last week, the City Council instructed me to make sign a letter of engagement with David Bragg as interim city attorney, and that was a very, very simple letter so that he could get to work. We've now had an opportunity to talk about some more details of that and to flesh it out, and I want to give the council a chance to, council members to to talk about what we've talked about and see if there's a motion. Gary?
Yeah, I'd like to start. First of all, I'd like to just say that I don't really know Mr. Bragg well. I mean, we've met, I think, twice on a maybe 30-second, hi, how are you kind of conversation. I don't think we've got any deeper than just knowing who he is. But I would add that I had just heard good things through the community that he was an outstanding lawyer. And even before the mayor came up with his short list of people applying for that position, I had in mind David Bragg for that position. So I'll start with that. But subsequent to our approving a temporary measure to get David Bragg in position at the last council meeting, I find that Mr. Bragg has insisted that his hourly rate be reduced from day one, his standard hourly rate that the city will pay for normal services, to $200 per hour from $275 that was approved, that he'll be charging $125 per hour for attending meetings here in the city council, that he will not have no travel charges, unlike other attorneys that we've had, for any of his meetings in Central Texas. He won't charge for the time it takes to get to those meetings. That he will not charge for time to educate himself about municipal law and any issues that come up. And he has included in a letter that I have that I assume will be made public here, that I insist that be made public. He's made a lot of recommendations on how we can better use his services by using city staff to do many of the functions that we've previously had the city attorneys do, and with oversight by the attorney himself. Anyhow, with that said, I make a motion that we adopt this letter that will be put into public record as being the new agreement terms for the city attorney.
Is there a second? Second. Now, and do we have some other copies? Anybody up here we need to give the press, and anybody else, you've got a copy? And do we have Mary? Come get I'd like you to have a copy of this. So the motion is to let this be the content of our expanded, whatever it is, letter of engagement with Mr. Bragg. Okay, other comments? So, Anna, will you call the roll?
I thought we just...
I'm sorry, you don't say something? No, I want you to call the roll. I'll say that Marvin's thinking about microphones over there, and we'll talk about it next week. I think we can, and if the council members will speak clearly, I think we can hear your call, and we'll go from there.
Councilmember Schiff.
Yes.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Thank you all. Mr. Bragg, I know part of your letter said that you love this community and you want to serve in this way, so I appreciate it very much that as well. Item D1. Let's see, I think I need to read this whole thing. Consideration, discussion, and possible action on the first reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, amending City Code, Chapter 7, Article 7.01, Section 701.10, related to municipal court prosecutions by city attorney or attorneys. Chapter 9, Article 9.04, related to appointment and powers and duties of the city attorney. And Chapter 11, Article 11.04, Section 11.04.008, related to city attorney's authority to bring suit to collect tax imposed by the city repealing conflicting ordinances, including a severability clause, and establishing an effective date. I raised this, and I will hope I'll get a motion in a moment, but I raised this question after going over, looking at everything in our ordinances that relate to city attorney. Talked to J.C. Brown about it. One of the things that it said was that the mayor appointed the city attorney and it was approved by the council. Looked at our charter and it said the council chooses a city attorney, and we figured out that ordinance was passed in 1995, 7 years before we adopted the city charter. So there's a lot of things need to be updated. We worked together and produced the document that's in the packet under item D1. It regularizes and updates a number of items regarding the city attorney for the city of Bastrop. And so I recommend to you all that we adopt on first reading item D1.
I so move.
It's, I'll tell you what, and let's do any discussion?
Part of the motion is that it be put on the consent agenda for the next meeting.
For the next meeting.
For the next
Okay.
regular meeting.
The next regular meeting, that would be the 23rd. And let's try to remind me of the practice. We have an ordinance. Let's do the roll call and see how that goes. So I think we'll do a roll call now.
Councilmember Shipp,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Del Rosa,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Thank you all. Thank you all for speaking into the mics. We have a witness to our internet and television meetings in the past. I don't know how many, but our new interim city manager has been watching us on TV and said sometimes he couldn't hear us. So we want to make sure that we speak up into our mics and make sure people that are listening at home and their businesses or wherever they are able to hear what we're saying. I want to move to item D. Is that Joe? Is that so? Yeah. Okay. Move to item D9. I know we have quite a number of people here that are interested in that. So, item D9 is consideration, discussion, and possible action on a variance request submitted by the owner and family members of a cemetery plot described as Block 1, Section 2, lots 98 and 98A, to allow the placement of polished pebbles over commercial weed control fabric as prohibited in the City of Bastrop Ordinance number 2009-31, Section 15.15E, prohibited activities. And Ms. Walter.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We did have a variance brought to our attention, and we did take it to our cemetery board. And the variance is requesting that they be allowed, I'm sorry, this picture is something different, that they be allowed to put down fabric and put down rocks on their plot, which is against our ordinance. Part of why we brought it to the board was to show that we have granted these variances in the past. This is an example of a variance that y'all approved back in 2014. This is what it looks like now. Our history of these type of variances is that they're not kept up, and we spoke to the ground maintenance staff that works out at the cemetery. It's very hard for him to weed eat these types of lots because he actually broke out the window in our city truck because one of the rocks flew over and hit his truck. So,
Wait, could you repeat what something hit his truck?
When the groundskeeper was weed eating a lot like this, one of the rocks came up. I mean, that's some of the issues as to why we have the rules in the ordinance. And so therefore we are not recommending the approval of the variance. The cemetery board did not approve it as well.
Okay,
What was the vote? What was the vote?
It was 3-2.
And can you characterize the 3s and the 2s about what they were talking about?
I think the 3s, and I'm only speaking from conversation
That's
at
fine.
the
Just to
meeting,
your best memory.
is that they understood the situation with the maintenance on these type of lots, and I believe the ones that voted yes just like the diversity within the cemetery, and that's why they like these types of things.
The twos were thinking what?
The diversity, the
Just
look.
that they thought it was,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, I would like to talk.
Sure.
If that's
You go.
okay.
You may, you're
Thank
on
you
the
very
floor.
much. I have a very strong opinion about this. I would like to remind everybody here of our flow chart, that the citizens are in charge. I mean, that's who we represent as the council. And underneath the council is the city of Bastrop, excuse me. And irrespective of the fact of the tremendous service that Tricia Silva has paid to our county, this is a very personal decision. I would really like you to take that photograph down. I think that's just irreverent that we've even put that up there. And I would say that I personally am going to urge the council to overwhelmingly uphold the right of these citizens who we represent to have whatever diversity they want on the grounds of their loved, beloved family members. And I think if there's some maintenance on there, a little bit of maintenance, you know, that's what we're here for. That's what we're working towards. And so I strongly urge that the council vote to allow the citizens to maintain grave sites and to decorate or to outfit grave sites however they want to have them done.
I would I would agree with Councilmember Jones, but I would also suggest that the city take a look at some weed control measures, you know, the type of fabric, the longevity, and encourage the assembly of this new technique in a way that has the longest lasting anti-weed characteristics. I'm sure that there's products out there that would do a good job.
I mean, at this point, our ordinance does not allow this type of covering. I mean, we are looking at the ordinance and taking it back to the board to revisit it. It hasn't been updated since 2009. So as staff, we're just upholding the ordinance, which is why the variance is being brought to you.
Yeah, and I mean, it may be that if were this variance to pass, it might be some direction, you know, to the advisory board and the staff about what the council's looking for. Willie, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just going to make a quick comment. I deal with issues like this from the Alta Vista Cemetery on the south part of town, and we have a set of 2 or 3 page bylaws that somehow get overlooked when somebody comes at the time of passing of a loved one and purchase a plot or 2 for their family, and it kind of ends up like this where they come in and I've been out there to see this particular plot and how nice it looks with that rock and everything. But the way I kind of look at my deal at the cemetery over there, that we never go back and ask them to undo what they've already done, because it was probably an honest mistake and we're going to live by that. But we always ask, because of the people mowing and doing the maintenance work, we ask them to maintain their own plot after that. After that happens, we ask them to maintain their own plot. So that's kind of how we address it over at Alta Vista.
Tricia, Thomas, did anybody from the family want to say anything? It's y'all are the applicants here, and we'd love to hear from you.
Just us two, if that's possible.
Say it again.
Just us two.
Whoever. It's up to you.
Sure. Sure.
Tell us who you are.
I'm going to start because I'm going to be less than she is. Hi, my name is Cindy Allen, and I live in Bastrop County, in the Tahitian Village. This is my sister-in-law. This is my brother. I currently purchased 5 plots there because I wanted to be close to my daughter. This past year has been a very emotional time for my family. I lost my daughter and my nephew 9 months later. My brother and I did not have time to prepare a funeral that was unexpected. Losing a loved one is horrific at best. For the survivors, consolation of such loss is softened by placing flowers, wreaths, little trinkets that bring comfort. All things possible bring ease of pain to the survivor of the deceased. I understand ordinances are in place to ensure the cemetery maintains a nice atmosphere for generations to come. However, some ordinances that I've reviewed could be revisited because they are unclear. I ask that council review cemetery ordinance with the city attorney to ensure that they are clear and concise. There are many areas that are unclear, and taking another look at these ordinances could be beneficial. And when making your final decision, I pray and ask that the council members not only look at the ordinance, but also to be sympathetic to the families in which these actions will affect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Tricia?
Sure. Tricia Silva, this is my husband, Thomas Silva. Mayor Kessler, council members, I'll be really brief because I think we are kind of already all on the same page. This variance is so much more than commercial plastic and polished stones. This variance represents a healing process for a brother and a sister who have shared many things and are now sharing the fact that they both lost children in tragic car wrecks within 9 months of each other and have to visit them side by side at the Fairview Cemetery. It is my sincere hope that the council will do its best to consider the pain and emotional well-being of our family when deciding this variance. Denying this variance will devastate and deeply injure a family's healing process. I want to also state that it was never our family's intention to ignore the rules or regulation of the city. We read the ordinance and believed that we had interpreted them correctly. Our family also understands the need for the city to put in place structures and guidelines in order to better serve the citizens of Bastrop. Having said that, the city allows for opportunities like variances to provide flexibility in such cases as the two that were granted back in May, one for Mr. Bell and the Weiss family. Our only intention was to create a peaceful and beautiful place that we could visit our loved one and grieve. Let's talk about the project. Could we put the picture back up that actually shows our project?
Do we have that?
Yeah. And I think you guys had it in your agenda packet as well.
I'd like everybody else to be able to see it, Tricia. If we
Yes, thank you so much. So what you have before you are pictures of a grave site of our beloved one. As you can see, enhancements have been done in a professional manner, costing approximately $500 in materials. All improvements were done by my husband, who routinely does comparable professional work for Bluebonnet Electric. The grave sites that are being compared to those that are unkept and overrun with vegetation, while I believe they're very special to those families, it is not a fair comparison by any means to our project. This project has been in place since May 7th and has been absolutely maintenance-free the entire time. Our family is prepared to be responsible for the maintenance issues. We understand that the city still holds the power to take it up if need be. I would like to present photos of a grave at Fairview that was done very closely to ours and is now 15 years old and is still low to no maintenance to the city at all.
Yeah, Tricia, I don't think we can get this on the screen, but you can certainly give it to the council members. Maybe one to the press. Thank you.
And as you can see, I actually love this gentleman, Mr. Roland Brand. Yes.
Would you give one to Mary right there?
Yes. This, what I've handed out to the council is, this actual grave site belongs to a wonderful gentleman that used to live in Bastrop Nursing Center named Roland Brand. I know personally because my mother worked at that facility for many years. Mr. Brand has no family in Bastrop. And as you can see, this grave site, he passed away in 2001. So it's 15 years old. And as you can see from this photograph, there's practically no vegetation around it whatsoever. So when these projects are done correctly, as Councilman De La Rosa spoke about, and the family is held accountable, they can be very successful. I understand that I was here in May when Mr. Bell presented his variance, and Mr. Sanders and I visited today, and I know he's here. And their advisory board, some of them are leaning quite strongly to projects like this. So I would really hope that you would consider allowing this work to stay in place. I appreciate all of the effort and the time by the council and the city staff, but but this is really the right way to go.
Thank you. A motion would be in order to grant a variance.
I make a motion that we grant a variance as instructed.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Peterson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Thank you so much.
I can't help but tell a story. When I first moved to Bastrop, my congregation said not to get involved in anything political, but they would let me be on the Cemetery Association board. And Arthur Edwards was the kingpin of that, and I served on that board for quite a while. And one of the last things he said to me was, Kenny, he said, Kenny, whatever you do, don't let what happened in Smithville happen here. Don't let the city take charge of the cemetery. Here I am as the mayor, but what's happened tonight is what Arthur was worried about. We have a staff that has to maintain that cemetery. We have taken responsibility for it. We have to operate it as a business the best we can. At the same time, we're a community that's trying to be sensitive to folks. And so this is the Bastrop way. We're going to find a way to work all this out. And when the Cemetery Advisory Board works to review the ordinances that we passed when we first took over the cemetery, I think we'll have the common sense approach that is reflected on the council and by, I think, a lot of y'all tonight. So I appreciate the comments, I appreciate the effort, I appreciate the staff, and we will work this out together in the Bastrop way. Thank you all. Item number D2, I'm going to switch there and let Lisa come forward. We had a request from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I want to ask the chair of that board, Lisa Patterson, you said be brief? D3, yeah, D3. That's what I'm looking at, but I wrote it down as a 1. So, and you're going to be brief though, right? Is that what you said?
Have I ever been anything but brief?
Yes. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you for your service, and please thank your board.
Will do. Many of whom are here tonight. In your packet, you have a letter that the commission requested that I send to you regarding development agreements. We're seeing the use of more and more development agreements in the city, and we've had varying degrees of heartburn as these development agreements set essentially new zoning requirements for a tract of land that deviates from our zoning ordinance. We've had tremendous success with some projects who've come to us repeatedly throughout the negotiation of the development agreement. Excess Ranch is a good example. Kept us informed, got our feedback, got our input, made the process much simpler so that when that preliminary plat does hit our table or our dais, we know exactly what the requirements were, why they were decided upon, and we can move forward and approve the preliminary plat. We've had other development agreements that were negotiated completely without planning and zoning involvement. So when they do hit planning and zoning, we're sitting there saying that the land use assumptions that you've included in this are not exactly lining up with what we've seen over these last many years. So the Planning and Zoning Commission was hoping to maybe approach this as a more collaborative effort with the City Council on development agreements. This is not uncommon. The City of Georgetown has actually codified this process in their ordinance where when a development agreement is negotiated, a draft comes before Planning and Zoning for a public hearing, and Planning and Zoning can vet it and then send a recommendation to Council. That is certainly a more formal way. Planning and Zoning is open to a formal ordinance change or an informal, just please let us take a look at it and have a conversation with all interested parties so we can give some input as the development agreement moves forward.
Yeah, well,
Lisa, could I ask a question?
Sure.
Is that more recent or years, you just time you've been on the, how many years you've been on the planning and zoning now?
I'm a spring chicken. I couldn't possibly say, but it's been a problem that's been recurring, but because we are seeing developers use these development agreements more and more frequently, and because we're anticipating that we will see them increasing even more in the future, we're hoping to get ahead of the problem and address something that we're seeing on a periodic basis and jump in and take control before it gets out of hand.
Is your experience more with just development agreements or planned developments or PIDs or MUDs? Or
it's the gamut. It's the gamut. So whatever is going to be deviating from our zoning ordinance, we would like to at least be able to take a look at, understand what the land use assumptions are that are driving the changes, so we can say, okay, we understand where that's coming from, or hey, wait a minute, we just had another very similarly situated development that we did something completely different, and maybe we can reach a better solution.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, because I think when Mike first said he was going to step down here and stay till September 1, I asked Mr. Adcock, but it's never made it to the council yet, that the council thinking about just taking a step back and deciding, or kind of in an interim till the new city manager gets here, how we're going to address PIDs and plan developments and development agreements and MUDs, and because we just need to look at it. But now that you brought this forward, I think it's a good time to sit down with y'all.
Right.
So from my perspective, I think if I hear what you're saying is that being just a rank layperson on all this stuff and not really understanding a lot of it, I really rely on you all to understand that. So you would be one more link in the process of trying to figure out what's the best thing for the community if we engage this process.
Right.
Do you think that if this council were to instruct the city manager, and I want to call on him to see if he has any comments before we quit talking here, but to instruct the city manager to find a way to include you all in all these processes, that would be the first step?
We would absolutely welcome that. And in fact, I've asked that it be placed on the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting as an agenda item for us to brainstorm some ideas to maybe present to the city manager and to council, just to gauge whether the commission wants a more formal process like the city of Georgetown has adopted, or just an informal, let us take a look and move forward.
But to continue the dialogue, or to begin the dialogue, this group could say, yeah, let's go ahead with that process.
Absolutely.
Marvin, you got any thoughts about this? I know it's catching you a little by surprise, but we need you to turn your mic on every time you speak, if you will.
I have some thoughts on this, yes, but I haven't even read the planning ordinance or the zoning ordinance. I don't know why that process is not in place already. Any kind of a plan development is modifying requirements of the planning ordinance and the zoning ordinance and that's what the commission deals with, I assume.
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing issues of lot size, setback variances, even down to the level of a transportation impact analysis, traffic impact analysis. And a lot of times those are covered in the development agreement, and it would have been so nice to be able to get the information and at least have an idea of when a TIA might be triggered, simply because we know traffic is not going to ever get any better unless we do something proactively right now.
So, other thoughts, motions, or whatever?
I'll move that we instruct the city manager to work with the Planning and Zoning Commission to put together a means of collaborating on these development agreements.
Second by Willie. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? 4-0, 4 votes yes, 0 against. Lisa, one more time, thank you for bringing this up. I want to say personally, one of the things that I have encouraged our commissions, committees, and boards to do is to be assertive and come up with initiative for us. Don't just be reactive to the staff. Staff can only think of so much. If you got some ideas, we're all in this together. Thank you so much.
I don't think anybody's going to accuse anybody on the planning commission of being non-assertive.
Thank you very much, and thank your board. Item D2, consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding approval of a resolution regarding creation of a sign ordinance review process. It's on page 114. I brought this up, and I think it's pretty obvious in the resolution what my points are, but the resolution's on 115. We've talked about this, and we've talked about some difficulties. We've done a couple of variances that we said were going to become part of the rule. We've never included it in the changes. There's a lot of conversation around the community that we're just a little too big city in our regard on this stuff, and it's not exactly Bastrop way doing the sign ordinance. I just love to get some people together and wrestle it to the ground, put a common sense approach to it, and come back to the council with some thoughts. So my resolution says that. If anybody's interested in moving it, I'd sure appreciate it.
Second.
Willie moves, Gary seconds. Any discussion? I think it calls for what does it call for? A city council member or mayor, and I think we can talk about, if y'all are willing to let me work that out with a volunteer, or if nobody volunteers, I'll do it myself, because I think it's really important.
I'd be happy to volunteer.
You're volunteering? Good, Gary's volunteering. Well, that's what I was hoping for. So I think your motion might include that you be the person that puts the group together and wrestles it to the ground. Was it your motion? Willie's motion. Is that your motion? We include Gary in it? You could, if you will. It will be good. He will. All right. We understand that Gary will lead that charge. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think it's about time. I made a request a couple years ago of the council to revisit the sign ordinance, which I think is inordinately long and very confusing. So I'm really excited that we might get something cleaned up here.
So we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there a no? I think it's 4. Did you vote yes, Deborah? 4-0. Gary, I know you'll be working with staff and the city manager on this, but good luck. I know this room's available and you're off and running. Thank you very much. The next 4 items, D4, D5, and D6, relate to a petition that we received regarding a charter change, and I'm going to call on the city secretary to begin that process with a presentation on item D4. Well, D7's the follow. Yeah, that's follow up on it. Yeah. Ann Franklin, you're on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ann Franklin, City Secretary. I come before you to inform you of a certification of the petition that was filed in our office on August 1st by Linda Curtis. The petition contained 337 signatures, of which 309 were verified as adequate, complete signatures. The petition is sufficient to cause a special election to amend the charter to be held on the next uniform election date set forth by state law. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
So this is just a matter of information, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Thank you. Item D5 is consideration, discussion, and possible action on the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Bastrop, Texas, calling for a special election to be held in the City of Bastrop, Texas on November 8, 2016 for the purpose of submitting charter amendments to the voters, providing that this ordinance shall be cumulative of all ordinances, providing a severability clause, providing for publication in a newspaper of general circulation, and providing an effective date. And Ann, you're on again. I know you're going to call on our city attorney to help you with this.
Yes, exactly. This is the ordinance. We're required to call the election by state law, and it has to come before the council with the language of the petition, and I'll let Mr. Braggs explain the language for the ordinance.
Come up, David, please. And this is on page 121, I think, Council.
When I reviewed the petition, it was obvious that there were separate questions being asked in the petition. State law is very clear that you can only ask one question in each amendment. The first of the three asked not only about changing the percentage, but also whether the 180 days was okay. The second thing asked again about changing percentage, but again, but what about the 180 days? And so in crafting the language of the ballot, I divided those into 5 sections, 5 actual amendments. We ran into an issue because the local government code says that you must have 180 days maximum on signatures. If a signature is older than 180 days, it doesn't count. Well, if you have voters thinking they're voting on that issue, that's really kind of an illusion, because if they vote, no, we don't like 180 days, state law is going to override it anyway. Now, it may require a court challenge to bring all of that about, but ultimately, state law would override. So I went back and thought about, well, can we change the language? Can we take out that 180 days in order to avoid the conflict? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. You must submit the petition, a request for amendment in the actual language of the amended, of the petition. And if you use any other language, then it's a void act. So we have to use that language, even though two parts of it are going to be asking people to vote on something that really can't be changed by a city charter.
So we are having to hold an election that we can't do, and we're having to pay for this.
Well,
that's going to be overridden by state law.
Only two parts. Three will be okay under state law. If the percentages are changed, then that's okay.
So there's essentially 5 questions. It could be yes, 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 or yes, no. It could be all that. So there could be 5 different answers.
Right.
Or there will be 5 different answers.
That's correct.
Okay. 5 separate answers, Rob, excuse me.
But only 2 of the answers will have no effect.
Got it. 3 of them will matter, and 2 of them won't. So, but we have to do it by law, so that's what you're saying.
That's right.
So what you've laid out for us here is what needs to go. This is the amendment, this is the ordinance to create the ballot that people will vote on in November.
That's right.
So, Deborah, are you okay with that, Deborah? I mean, you understand, or you want to keep going with the questions?
So we have to do this.
I believe so.
And this is is this the petition that who's this person that doesn't live in Bastrop that initiated this? And it's going to cost us how much money to do this?
You want to guess, Ann, can you answer that question? We're guessing, yeah. You want to come up, answer Councilmember Jones's question?
The estimated amount given to us by the county, we contract with the county to do our election. And because the county will be having an election, I believe Elgin will be having, so we'll have a joint election. So the cost went down to, the estimate is $7,192.22 at this time.
Well, I want to point out that this is in our charter. I mean, the citizens have a right to do this. I mean, we're not doing anything illegal here. I mean, it's cost of doing business. You know, we have to pay for the election. So I'm glad we got a discounted rate. Thanks. Anything else for David? I mean, and what we need to do is pass this as is, correct? Is that your recommendation?
That's my recommendation.
I move that we approve the first reading of this ordinance and put it on its consent agenda for the next schedule.
Let me ask you if you'll rephrase that. I don't know that we need to put this on the consent agenda. We have to get this done next week. And one reason we're having the meeting next week is so we can comply with the time frame, correct, Ann? Yes. So we'll just vote on it. It doesn't matter how you do it, but it's not going to be it'll be the next meeting, not the next regular meeting.
Okay.
Is there a second? Second. Willie seconds. And I'm going to let Ms. Jones consult with the city manager for a second. Any thoughts, Marvin? Are you okay with what we're doing? No, I understand. I just want to make sure we...
So I guess my other question to you is that, I guess according to state law, because the petition was drawn improperly by people who do not live here, and we have to spend the money to hold this election, once we pass this, which I understand everybody has the right to do, then we have to challenge it because it was written improperly. So this is going to continue to cost the citizens additional money because we're going to have to challenge the language of the petition. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, and the reason I think that is normally in a dispute between two parties, the two parties can agree to the outcome, and therefore you can make it a summary kind of procedure. Here, I'm not sure who the party is with whom you would be agreeing. The city can't agree to do away with an amendment to the charter. And at the same time, the people proposing the amendment can't agree. In other words, I don't know how you bring about that kind of agreement. So what I think probably will happen is the city would end up filing a motion for summary judgment, or petition, and then motion for summary judgment to have it declared invalid. That's my suspicion about the direction it would go.
The summary to have it declared invalid will just be for 4 of the 5 questions?
2 of the 5.
2 of the 5?
Yes.
So we have all the costs, and then we'll have additional costs once this is over because people don't know what they're doing. So anyway, there you go.
Any other comments? I think we're ready to vote. We need to call the roll.
Councilmember Schiff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dolorosa,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
That's a 4-0 vote. We now have first reading to call the election, but we also need, assuming we're going to pass it next week, which I think we're bound to do, we need to approve a contract for the election services. Ann, you want to say any more about that?
This is a contract being drawn up between the county, the election administrator for Bastrop County and the city of Bastrop. And it spells out our duties, the administrator's duties, and the estimated cost. And we would need approval from you all.
So I move that we approve the contract for between the county and the city for the November 8th election.
Second? Second by Mr. Peterson. Deborah?
I have a question. Do we know who the attorney is that drew up that petition for the citizens? I mean, I think we asked that question and I haven't heard the answer. Do we know who that was?
I do not know who the attorney was.
Does anybody know who that is? Can we not, is that not something, I mean, it's just like a secret that they did it wrong and they won't
I don't know.
yet own up to who did it?
I don't know that it's a secret. I just don't know. The document I had presented to me from Ann was the petition itself. Of course, that doesn't identify either the person who began it or the attorney who may have been involved. And I think we know the name of the person who initiated it because that would be on the
Or
form.
submitted it? Who submitted it?
We do know the person that's...
Well, I know who submitted it, but I know that in the letter that I received, they said a notable attorney who was highly regarded and knew exactly what they were doing drew that up for them. So I just was wondering who that was.
I don't have...
Did it wrong.
No, I don't think we know. Good question. Thank you. We've got a motion and a second by Bill. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We've got four ayes and no noes to contract with the county as we have done in the past. Item D7, Marvin, I've got some language problems here. Do you want to try to rewrite this for me? I'm suggesting on item D7 that we, if any of these motions or these amendments pass, we have to wait 2 years to have a charter review committee. If they all fail, we can do the charter review committee after that. So we have started the process. It seems obvious we need to postpone it until we see what happens in November, and this just enables us to postpone action that we've already taken. Marvin, do you have some better language for us?
If you just take the third from the bottom line, leave the rest of it the same where it says amend election in November, and then substitute which would for the words thereby. So the sentence would read, or that part would read, to cause a charter amendment election in November, which would prohibit any future such elections prior to November 2018, and then strike the word which, if passed by the voters. In other words, that's what it's trying to say is that if anything passes, the charter cannot be amended again for 2 years.
Yeah, and then strike out the will, whatever the word is, we'll have here, but whatever, those last 3 words, I just struck them out and can't read them. So,
I so move that we...
With those changes?
That we adopt this with those changes.
Sure. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I believe that's 4-0.
I didn't vote.
I'm sorry, do you want to vote?
No, So then now, because we're holding this election, we cannot do the charter review for 2 years. Is that what's happening?
Let me let Mr. Bragg comment about the 2-year thing. We have a 2-year, the law says we can't vote And we can't have another charter election for 2 years if one passes. If this one passes, we will have to wait till November of 2018. And so there's no reason to have a charter review committee this early on, I think. But if they all fail, we could deal with it in November. And that's my logic.
Yeah, that's correct. The 2-year limitation is on the election. You can always have the Charter Review Commission working during the 2-year period. Then what's the point if they can't bring anything to a vote, I guess is what the mayor said.
Yes, I mean, why would we review something for 2 years?
So all these citizens that, I mean, it sounded like at a previous meeting, we had an awful lot of citizens that came forward that wanted to amend the charter and have a review, and now that can't.
If this passes in November, I'm just saying let's wait and see what happens.
Okay, so I think that's unfortunate.
So I didn't hear your vote, so you want to vote yes or no on this? So it's a 4-0 vote. Thank you all very much. Do we have anybody that I've been waiting around we need to do that I'm missing? Or shall I just keep going through the numbers here? I'll just keep moving. Item D10, consideration, discussion, possible action on the first reading of a proposed ordinance by the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, amending the budget for the fiscal year 2016 in accordance with existing statutory requirements, appropriating the various amounts herein, repealing all prior ordinances and actions in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date. Ms. Walden.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This is a budget amendment for fiscal 16's budget. I am including an increase in various revenue budget line items, along with increasing some specific expense line items. I think if you have any questions regarding the memo I included in the packet.
I asked a question last week, you said you answered it. Apologize. Should apologize to you earlier. I knew I was going to do it tonight. When I asked the question last week, where were the funds coming from to pay for the overages on the legal fees, you said you'd answer it tonight.
Yes, it's in the amendment. So because I'm able to raise some of the revenue budget items, our sales tax is coming in higher than budgeted, and there's several other categories listed on the amendment. I'm able to cover those higher legal costs with higher revenue.
Thanks.
This is the first reading on this, what we call it, a proposed ordinance. Is there anybody with a motion here?
I move that we approve on first reading this item and put it on the consent agenda the next regular meeting.
So there's a second. Tracy, that's okay for the 23rd? That covers it? Okay, this will go on the agenda for the 23rd and on the consent agenda if it passes. Any discussion? Ann, I'm going to let you go back to your seat while we're waiting. Judy, you want to talk on this one?
I do.
Yeah, come on up. Judith Hoover.
I don't have the detail that you have, but I do have a concern about the continuing legal expenses. This is directly related to the continuing legal expenses. So one of the items I believe has to do with the Pine Forest lawsuit to help continue to fund that. And my question is, in the agreement with the school, BISD, and the county, do we ever get reimbursed? Is there a guarantee that we are reimbursed, whether win, lose, or draw?
Yeah, let me let the city manager answer that question.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. What the question is? Yeah, the question is, we have agreed. We have an agreement with the school board, the county, and the city to work on this suit to try to clear up the big mess out of Pine Forest 6. The city agreed early on that we would front the money with the stipulation that we would get the money back when we sell the lots. And I just want to see if you. I know you talked to the judge today. You have any other information about that? About your question is the guarantee that we get the money back?
My
All right.
question is several things.
Let's start with them, we'll see what we
Okay,
have.
why would the city of Bastrop take on this responsibility by
you're asking the
itself?
wrong guy. Ask us.
Okay.
Ask Willie. Ask Willie.
Do we have that kind of money over the school district and the county? And what if we don't get the lots in the lawsuit? How do we ever recuperate all this money?
Let me start in saying this, and then somebody else can jump in there. The real reason, probably the primary reason that we got into this deal, because it involved citizens that lived on Briar Forest that are citizens of the city. And they came to us to ask for help of what was going on with that Pine Forest group. Okay, that's how this initially got started, and then it carried on into the county, and of course the school district represented them, WCIDs, in this lawsuit as well. So when everybody sat down together, we were trying to come up with a lawyer, and of course we ended up with Charles Munder, and here we are today. But that's initially how we got started. Was citizens came to us, Judy, that lived on Briar Forest, that were being picked on out there by this particular developer that wanted to issue just new deals on them, new assessments on their lots, that they already had water, they had sewer, they had streets, and he wanted to come and reassess another fee on their lots, and they asked for help from the county and the city.
Let me add this to Judy. I think an additional clarification to what Mayor Pro Tem is saying. City manager came to us. We talked about this. We felt like something had to happen. Willie's described it. We had to fix this. It was just too important for going forward about that section of town. A third of it's ours. It's probably the prime spot for real estate in this county right now after the fires. We have a bunch of lots out there that the 3 or 4, actually 5 entities have an investment in that we have taken back as a result of foreclosure for non-payment of taxes. And the city was in the best position, we thought, at that point to try to press this. The other 2 went in with this. City manager, Mike Talbot, came to us and said, you know, if we can, he recommended that we front this, and we decided to do it. I don't think we knew, I didn't think it was going to be as complicated as it is and cost as much as it is, but there are now over 400 lots out there that are worth from $2,000 to $5,000 a piece. You can do the numbers on those, and as soon as this gets cleared up, and we're believe from talking to our attorney, we're very, very near finishing up the work on it so that Judge Campbell will rule in our favor and that we can move ahead. Now, whenever we sell those lots, the first check that gets written from the sale of those lots goes to the city to reimburse us for our expenses. You know, we made that decision. We have a contract with those 3 entities, and for good or bad, that's what we did.
So how much have you spent so far on Mr. Bundren on this lawsuit?
Do we have a figure on that, Marvin, yet? Can we get that later, or do we have it now?
I would prefer to bring it to you separately, possibly at the next meeting. There's several months' bills that are in process. The last bill that I've seen is March. So I don't know if the other ones are in process. I'd like to be sure about that before.
Can you put that in your next city manager report for the 23rd? Judy, that's all I can say. I don't want him to give an inaccurate answer tonight. We're not trying to hide anything. We know we've spent the expenses, and
so
I think they need to stop.
My next question is, how much more are you willing to spend? What are you going to approve tonight in addition to the attorney fees that have been spent? You're out of the budget money. It's now August, you have to get through to the end of September. How much more money?
Let me say that I don't think we can answer that question because we have a contract with those other 2 entities. I will say that I think it's, for speaking for myself, I hope we can talk to them about if there's going to be a lot of litigation going forward. The answer that Marvin and I got today in a conversation was that it looks like there's not going to be a lot more. And I think that if there is going to be a lot more, that we need to have a conversation with the other 2 entities about it. But we've agreed to that, for good or bad, and I'm not sure what we can do other than talk to them and appeal to them, and I'm certainly willing to do that. And I'm sure Marvin is as well.
Have you asked the new city attorney to put fresh eyes on this case?
We haven't had time to talk to him about that, but we're having an executive session later that I'm not sure if it's posted for that, but it might come up.
I think that would be a very healthy thing to do. I would sure like to see more money spent on citizen services than on lawyer fees that go to Rockwall, Texas.
Well, I'll say this, I've spent a lot of time with Marvin, and fresh eyes see fresh things. So I would imagine that would be the case with an attorney.
Thank you.
I would like to say something about this, and that is that at a previous meeting, we talked about making these invoices available to the public. I do not mean to publish the invoices with strategy. I would not and did not mean that, but I do want the totals made available to the public, and we've had pushback, to say the least. And I just would like to direct our city manager to appeal to our partners in this trilateral agreement and then also direct him to work with our interim city attorney to see what we can do to provide some sort of summary overview of those bills to the public. I believe the public is entitled to know how much money we're spending.
So I've let us get maybe off track. Tracy, does this relate to the motion the ordinance that you brought for us?
Not really.
It may be that I'm out of order, but I think that we have an opportunity somewhere, Deborah, for you to make that point. And I may have let Ms. Hoover get us off
Her comment
track
about
because
the
she was
legal fees, I think, was
mesmerizing.
appropriate.
It may be that some of this budget
Yes.
adjustment has to do with that. So it is,
Yes.
and your adjustment has something to do
My
with some of this.
adjustment is adjusting the budget line item to a projected amount, and I can only project. I don't know what the
Right.
rest of the legal
Okay.
fees are going to be.
Well, thank you for that clarification, and it made me feel a little bit better. Other questions? Are we sure what we're doing here? Did we have a motion earlier? I'm sorry. A motion by somebody. No, we've already approved it. Why are we
No,
talking
y'all have
about
not
this?
voted.
No, I don't think I would let Judy talk. We'd approved it. So, has there been a motion, Ann, do you know?
I heard a motion by Councilmember Schiff, but I did not hear a second.
And Willie seconded it, but he did turn his mic on, so he'll turn his mic on and second it right now. Second. I heard him second it. Thank you, Willie. Thank you, Willie. I appreciate that. Is there any other discussion? Let's see. This is an ordinance, so will you call the roll?
Councilmember Schiff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Del Rosa,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
That's a 4-0 vote. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Tracy. Is there
D8 you skipped, and that was mine as well, if you want to go ahead and do it.
D14?
D8.
D18. D what? I don't have it.
D8.
I didn't do D8. Okay, well, let's go back to D8. Consideration, discussion, and possible action on the first reading of a proposed ordinance at the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, revising the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 13, Utilities, by amending Section 1302-008, Billing Discontinuance of Service, by adding subsection 1302-008B, Average Monthly Payment Plan, and by amending Section 1307-005, by adding subsection 13.07.005H, Average Monthly Payment Plan, and providing an effective date. Ms. Waldron.
The revision that is being brought to you is for Chapter 13, the utility chapter of our Code of Ordinance. And this revision really is just adding the average monthly payment plan to our ordinance. Earlier in the consent agenda, you approved our utility policy, which we also added it in there as well.
This is a fairly standard practice among utilities, is that correct? It lets
Yes.
people, the cold and the hot months, average it out where they don't get hit so hard.
It's just basically a payment plan that someone can, if they are eligible, can opt to be a part of.
There's a motion available there's an ordinance, is it first reading of an ordinance, if anybody wants to move it on D8.
I so move that we approve it and put it on the consent agenda at the next regular meeting.
For the August 23rd. Second by Councilmember Jones. Any discussion? And let's call the roll, please. Gary and then Deborah.
Councilmember Schiff,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Del Rosa,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Well, thank you for reminding me that I skipped it. Item D11, consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding Excess Ranch, City of Bastrop contract for water. Mr. De La Rosa.
Thank you, Mayor. Is all of this going to be discussed in open session, or some of this discussion?
It's up to you.
I have no problem discussing everything on these documents in open session with anybody. If the city manager and the attorney would like to weigh in at any particular time, just stop me and correct me, I want to go back to a document that was approved by the city on May 14, 2014 with the groundwater rights purchase agreement with Excess Ranch.
Page 171.
Yeah,
Starting on page 171 of the packet.
A couple of issues, and I just want to make the newer members aware of some of these. Couple of these clauses are in this contract, and because the only remaining members that were left is the mayor, myself, and Ms. McAnally. So, but on one particular item, I want to start on 6.3 of this agreement. It relates to
page 174.
It's page 4 on the agreement, but it deals directly about if we didn't have a permit by June 30th, 2016, we had the right to exercise an option for receiving half our money back that we paid for our water agreement. And then it goes on into goes on to an A, B, and C of 6.3. Parties can agree or not agree to whether progress has been made, and that's probably where we're going to start with an issue, because I do not know for a fact, but I've been told that the former city manager had made a comment to this group that he believed that progress has been made. And my argument is that the city manager never confirmed or conferred with council members that I remember on a policy decision, and if he had the right to go out and do that on his own, or was that something that should have been brought to us? So, but there's another clause in here in number 10, but tonight I'm just dealing with the 6.3 of this agreement, where it says the city has the right, is entitled to the request to receive half of the money back if no permits are received by June 30th, 2016, and as of June 30th, 2016, and as of August 9th, 2016, we still do not have a permit. So it's up in deliberation with the other members of the council, but I would ask that a formal letter be sent to the Excess Ranch group that we're exercising that option to receive half our money back.
All right, so Willie, you want to go ahead and make that as a motion, see if we get a second to talk about it, or?
I would make that motion, yes.
All right, so you would suggest, you would move that we, exercise our option under item 6.3 on page 4 of this document, 174 of our packet, and so is there a second to that motion? All right, Mr. Peterson seconds it. So Willie, you want to say any more? Or you said.
Well, in line with this, and I don't understand everything that's going on here. I believe the Excess Ranch Group exercised their right to, and this is another document on the third amendment to this water purchase agreement that it was signed on July 18th of this year. And again, I wasn't made aware of this. I don't know if the other members were made aware either through legal counsel or the city manager that this had been brought forward why wasn't it brought forward to the council to make us aware of this? So there's two different. This third amendment reflects the original MOU.
Bill, you want to say anything? Gary?
Yeah, and I'm not an attorney, but as I look at this, it doesn't appear that we're on a time. I didn't see a time constraint. It says that the seller will refund our money 90 days after we request it, but it doesn't say that we're limited on a time clock of when we can make that request. And if we are close to getting a judgment on this, in our favor. Well, we don't know which way it's going to go, but certainly it looks like the door is open, and I flipped that back to our city attorney to see, is the door still open if we just let it ride for now until we see what the courts have to say?
Well, there is a deadline.
I'm going to go with, I'm sorry, who was trying to talk? I want to go with Willie and then the city manager.
I'm not, unless we're reading, and tell me if I'm reading a different document than you, Gary, because it says, despite all best, reasonable, and cooperative efforts by the parties, production permits for a minimum quality of 1,500 acre-feet are not issued to the buyer by the district on or before June 30th, 2016. The buyer, which is the city, is entitled to request, and the seller is then required to reimburse the buyer, the city, within 90 days of its written request for the same. 50% of the purchase amount paid to the seller by the buyer for the groundwater rights subject to the following. That's when it gets into A, B, and C. So to me, I read it that you have 90 days after June 30th, the clock starts ticking for 90 days to exercise that option to be reimbursed.
I want to say, and I'll call Margaret next. I just want to say I'd be uncomfortable with this council passing on this motion until we had a chance to talk to our attorney about it in an executive session, because there's some legal stuff here that I'm not sure I understand. So, I mean, we can do everything we want to, and we can also ask him to speak to us in an open session, but I sure want to hear from the attorney at some point. Marvin, do you have any thoughts?
I just wanted to point out, from what I've read so far about this matter, first of all, you purchased 3,000 acre-foot of water from this estate. Those deeds have been processed. You now own that 3,000 acre-foot of water. So everybody understands the next step is you have to get a permit to drill it, to take it out of the land. And that's the one that a district court gave you a favorable action. I'm sorry, that's not right. The administrative judge approved, in a lengthy opinion of which I have copies here, if anybody would like them, approved that application, but it is not an approval because it goes back to the underground water district that then has to act on it. So there still could be a number of legal steps left. Now the other part of it, as I understand it, is you have an option for another 3,000 acre-foot of water, or acre-feet of water, that would cost another $1 million. So those are the two big aspects of this status of this transaction right now. I think it's kind of vague as to what happens if you ask for the $1 million back. But it may be clear, and I just may not understand it yet. But certainly, the attorneys involved can help be more definitive about that. But it is at least a two-headed process. One is the right to drill. One is the possibility of 3,000 acre-foot more as an option for $1 million over the next 5 years.
Well, I'm not here tonight to talk about the next 3,000 acre feet, because we haven't got a permit for the first 3,000 acre feet, and that process is still ongoing. But what I find interesting though is that our attorney didn't draft this; their attorney drafted this original agreement. All right, they came back with their attorney drafted this third amendment. But what I find special about this one, instead of going from June 30th to 2016. To say 2017, they want to extend it now to 2021. And for the reason that probably this is going to be tied up in court again with the groundwater district through a lawsuit by someone or some other party. So I just find that the memorandum had, you could extend the agreement to 2017, but the last document they presented to the city wants to extend it out 5 more years.
And your suggestion, they think that it's going to last that long before we get
Well, I mean, I think we're not doing our job if we don't ask for the reimbursement of 50% of our initial payment and then go from there.
Right. David, we're in open session here. Do you want to weigh in at all on this? And now if you do, come on up so we can hear you on the mic.
The only thing I would like to do, and I know this sounds like I'm taking the fifth, but most of this discussion I would rather have an executive session for obvious reasons. But the only thing I would like to point out is just a clarification on the language. The 90 days applies to when they must write their check if we exercise that option. There is a deadline. The deadline is when the permit is issued. The minute the permit is issued, then that paragraph...
All of 6.3 goes away.
All of 6.3 goes away, including the right to request a refund. So, and we're told, I don't know how reliably, we're told that the permit could be issued within a matter of 30 to 60 days. Now, that's if everything goes the way people are telling me they think it's going to go. But I don't know whether that's true or not, but there is the deadline. Otherwise,
I don't have a problem going to closed session if that's what makes him feel comfortable.
Well, yeah, that's, but we got a couple of people want to talk before we do that. Let me call on Glenn Johnson.
Glenn Johnson, 1109 Pecan Street. As an attorney, I would say yes, talk to your attorney in session, but as a citizen, what we need is a secure water supply. And this council voted several years ago, considered all the options, LCRA, aqua water, whatever, and went with excess ranch. I don't think that any action should be taken now to destroy that opportunity of getting sufficient water for this city to grow. And I think the water is there, it's potable water. The other option, the Ingram well, you gotta mix it with other water to make it palatable, potable. And so I don't think there's any necessity to vote tonight to ask for the $1 million back, because the option is to get even more water, and this city is going to need that water. We've talked from this dais, all of you have talked about how this city is going to grow, and we're transitioning from a little small town to a moderate-sized town. But we're not going to do that if we don't have adequate water supplies. We've got a contract that gives us that water supply, and to take back the money now and lose, I haven't reviewed the contract in depth, but it seems to me that we ought to take the action, not take action now. You need to talk to your attorney. You need to evaluate that, but the option has been extended past the June 30th date, is my understanding, and that the city council ought to keep that money in the bank in hopes of getting even more water supply to fuel the growth that this town is going to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. John Landauer.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having me. John Landworth, the Excess Water Company. I'm here to answer any questions regarding the agreement. I was the one that was here during all the discussions about water. I'm very familiar with the agreement, and I would say again, please review this in-depthly with your legal counsel. I'm not here to discuss that specifically. I can say what the agreement was set out to do was to say at some point, if there isn't a permit approved, the city may request the water or the monies back, or 50% of the monies back. We're fully ready to adhere to the agreement that's in place now. As Excess Ranch has always done, I would say we would ask that in good faith that we've always had is we'd be very willing to discuss any issues or concerns you have with this agreement. We've always done what we said we were going to do, and that's what I would like to do. I think the intention on the June 2016 date was to give the council an option if that's what you so chose. I think from my point of view, you're very close, and I would hate to see that go the wrong way.
I've heard different, so.
Please.
I'm sorry. I've heard different, so I mean, y'all can line up everybody you want to say you think we're in the process of getting our permit 30 to 60 days. I've been told that we're not going to get one because somebody's going to stop it. So we can go either way. But, you know, what fascinates me more, John, is that our city manager, which he doesn't work for you, he works for us, had a conversation, because he told me so, he had a conversation with you previous city manager. And he knows, Ken, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I don't, sure.
You know what I'm talking about, Ken. I mean, so y'all had this discussion about this deadline coming up on June 30th, and you were contacted. Mr. Foster sent in a third amendment to the MOU with his signature on July the 18th, and yet nothing was ever told by our legal counsel or our city manager to this group about the June 30th deadline or this even showing up. We had to find and dig it for ourselves, and that's wrong. And I mean, I'm not blaming you, but what I am saying is that the city manager took time to visit with you, who he doesn't represent. He represents the citizens of Bastrop and this group right here he works for, and we weren't even told of this.
Well, I would agree with that. The other part that extension did was there was discussion about the second tranche of water, or the other 3,000 acre feet. The city's actually in default per the contract in that amount for that second tranche of water. We've always wanted the city to have the option to be able to purchase that water, and so that's what that extension is also about. It's not only giving the city the option to extend, give you more time to get the permit. You've got as much time as you want. This is a clause that says you guys can come to us anytime after June 30th of 2016 and request your funds back. And within 90 days, we'll do that. Okay? You know, we had an agreement that, yeah, things went down the road and took a little bit longer. At no time was I trying to hide anything. This was a document that was discussed in the public. And, you know, we want to be partners with the city, and we would love to work these items out. I'm not sure how we proceed and do that, but, you know, we would like to do what we had agreed upon and make sure that the city gets its water at a very marketable rate, and that it can secure water long-term at a very advantaged rate. And so that's what that was trying to do. We were just trying to give the city an option to move down that path. And I think...
Well, you made a comment a while ago. You said the city may ask for its money back. That's not what the contract says. It says the seller is then required to reimburse the buyer, which is the city. That's what I'm reading on this document.
So that is true. The buyer has the right. The buyer may request after June 30th, 2016, that we reimburse the buyer. I apologize. 50%. So excess water company will reimburse the city 50% of the water rights that they weren't able to get. Okay? You have the right to exercise that notification at any time after June 30th of 2016. And I would say talk with your legal counsel about that, what that means for you guys, and then we have 90 days to put that back.
Well, my question to you, so you're saying that extension that we signed goes both ways, not only for the payback, but for an additional buy-in for more acreage? That works for both of those options?
That was the intent of that, which was not signed, or I have not seen an executed copy of that third amendment. Okay.
You haven't seen it, but we have it?
Who was it signed by, Willie?
It was signed by Mr. Foster.
And he's connected with your outfit?
He's the managing partner of Excess Water.
But you haven't seen it?
I've seen that. I haven't seen the city agree to those terms.
Oh, I don't think we've responded to it at all.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, I think we just found the...
I agree, and what I'm here today is say, let's talk about this and work out what works best for everybody. We're here to do that. That's why we're here. I would hate to have a notification go out that within 90 days I have to act on, and the water rights go back to where they were. And so that's my concern.
Yeah. And thank you for coming, for appearing for questions. Do you have any other questions for John? I know you're still here if we had come up with something. Lisa Patterson.
I just want to reiterate what Glenn said and encourage you to visit with legal counsel before you take any actions. I think we all remember that trying to find a potable water source for this city was not a pleasant experience for anybody involved, I don't think. But we do have an excellent source. There are plenty of people who would love to come in and take all that water off of our hands. It's my understanding that the proposal for decision on our permit was just issued 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. So it hasn't even gone before the Groundwater Conservation District yet for their acceptance of the PFD from the SOA judge. So I would recommend you visit with council. I would recommend that you see the lay of the land with Groundwater Conservation District before we start pulling any rugs out underneath the potable water source.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to note that we have 3 items left in the agenda, but I don't think that there's a lot of people waiting around for them. We have a motion on the floor, but I do not want to call for the vote until we have a chance to go into executive session and talk about this from the legal standpoint with our attorney and our city manager. So I think we might as well just go ahead and do whatever we have to knock out in executive session while we're in there in addition to this item. So Marvin, I know item 1 will let us do, and I'm asking David the same question. Item 1 will deal with this issue, I believe. I think on item 5, we've dealt with one of those, and I'd rather wait in terms of the search until Ms. McAnally gets back. I don't think we have any competitive matters of the utility, and I don't think there's anything under 3 or 2, but I need you to tell me, so I'll just call section 1 otherwise. That's all you're saying else? Okay. The City of Bastrop City Council will meet in a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551 and Sec to discuss the following. Section 551.071(1)(a)(b) and Section 55. Is there some confusion out here about what we're doing?
You have a couple of appointments you were going to make. Can you knock those out?
Yeah,
before you go into executive session.
The problem is I've got a motion on the floor with this item. I don't know how I can just stop it, you know. All right. You're withdrawing the motion. We'll deal with those 3 items. Then we will go into executive session. If there's a motion coming out, it will be something similar to what we've heard or maybe not. So item D12 is board appointment by me of Daniel DeClue. Daniel is a young man who came to me right after I was elected mayor and said, what can I do to get involved in the community of Bastrop? And I looked around trying to find a place for him. And the one place I could find that was free at that point was an alternate on the Board of Adjustment. I don't think it's the best use of his time. Having a vacancy that came up on the, unexpectedly to me, on the Parks Board. So I have talked to him about that. I think he brings a level of energy and youth and interest in athletic activities and recreation activities that will make him an ideal candidate. And so I'm going to call on Deborah before I make let me make the appointment. I'm going to appoint him to the Parks Board, and I'm going to call on you.
I have to recuse myself because Daniel is my son. and I don't want to be partial about swaying anybody's vote with a bunch of adjectives. So, but anyway, I'm going to recuse myself.
And I will comment before I ask if there's a motion to affirm that Deborah will also recuse herself if Daniel's approved of anything that comes to us from the Parks Board, and that was a recommendation from the Ethics Commission. So, first of all, is there a motion to affirm or approve my appointment?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Herb Goldsmith. And I think it's in the packet, but I asked him to resign from the Board of Adjustment in order to receive this appointment. Herb.
I respectfully offer to you that I think our system of appointments needs to be looked at very carefully. Not specifically about this case, but when I looked into certain matters regarding this appointment, I discovered some errors. As you know, the boards and commissions are very important to the city government. They perform a great deal of service to you. I was appointed to the Board of Adjustment. I've attended faithfully, and I'm also the chair of the form-based task force. The problem in this particular case, I have 3 questions.
One, were there other applicants that were reviewed or in the queue?
I didn't have any applicants. I've been looking for people for quite a while.
And the other one, there's a notification that there may be a conflict of interest with HT Fitness.
I think it's like everybody else. I think the reason we have that is to identify what possible conflicts might be and to alert people to recuse themselves when the time comes. We live in a sort of a community where often it's hard to avoid conflicts, and that's why we passed that provision for our application process.
Well, what I'm going to say is
I
think you really need to take a closer look at the ordinance, period, from top to bottom.
Thank you.
But this is the part that kind of flagged me, that something must be broken. The Code of Ordinances, City of Bastrop, Chapter 1, Section 1.02.002, Form of Government, parentheses B, Uniform Advisory Bodies Attendance Requirements. In order to ensure the effectiveness of proper operation of the city's appointed advisory bodies, the City Council requires that all members of city advisory bodies maintain a suitable attendance record for such civic service. Because regular attendance is vital to effective service, the City Council requires. The mandate in the ordinance basically says you will attend 66% of the called meetings, or you will miss no more than you cannot miss 3 in a row. And there are certain exclusions, medical emergencies, urgent family members, required attendance at other events, meetings regarding employment. Makes sense. However, in this particular case, Mr. DeClue was appointed on May 26, 2015. On June 3rd, he was, I guess, to attend a meeting, but had a previous engagement. On July 1st, there's no mention of him in the minutes, he didn't attend. I go to all the meetings, so I know how many he attended. September 2nd, he was absent on the day he was supposed to be sworn in. On October 7th, he attended and was sworn in and actually sat in as an alternative. On March 9th, April 6th, May 4th, June 1st, absent and resigned August 4th. That means it was about 25%. Something is awry when this situation can happen. And as far as the ordinance is concerned, I advise the city manager to read all of it because there are certain procedures to address these matters. I brought this matter up at previous meetings because we needed our alternatives. When I was assigned to the Board of Adjustment as an alternative, it was important that you come to the meeting so that you are trained to deliver a good decision. In this particular case, when he did show up for a meeting, he actually sat in and never been to another meeting and rendered a vote on a decision. So, in closing, I'm just saying, it just doesn't look good. Please fix it. Yep.
Anybody else?
Any questions?
Herb, I think you're the only one ahead. Thank you. Any other comments? I do think there's a difference in we have 2 boards that have alternates on them. And there's notwithstanding Mr. Goldsmith's comments, that have a little different standard for that. Any other discussion? Did I get a motion? Is there a motion to approve, Daniel? Do we have a second? Let's just call a roll on this one.
Mayor Pro Tem Villarosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Schiff?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes. Thank you. Deborah, would you come back to the dais? I am aware that last year we had 3 council members on the BEDC board. One of them was the mayor, who is required to be on the BEDC board by order of his election. 2 other council members who were Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Schiff, who were elected to the council while they were sitting on the EDC board. I feel like that probably the citizens knew what they were getting into by electing them in terms of them staying on the EDC board. Probably not wasn't the best situation to have all three of them on there. I thought last year, because I was making some pretty major changes as a result of my concern about the people that have been on that board for a very long time. There hadn't been any turnover in a long time. Several people had been on there more than 10 years. And so as I was making those changes, I felt we needed some stability from some longtime members. And because Willie and Gary were both elected to council while they were sitting members on that board, I thought that was a safe thing to do. But I think by and large, we're better off with not a lot of council members on that board. The board's considering right now what the best process is in their bylaws as they review them. So I've asked, not asked, but I'm going to replace Gary on the board, so I'll be the only council member on there. And as I've said before, frankly, I hope that the bylaws allow the mayor to appoint a council member if the mayor thinks that that council member is better to sit in the mayor's spot, which I think in this case would be the case because Gary's a much better member than I am on the EDC board. If I get that opportunity, I'll put him back in my place. But in the meantime, we're just going to have one council member on there, regardless of what happens with this appointment. I have chosen Kevin Plunkett because he is a person who has moved into this community with a business savvy, a business interest, and runs a business or two. And not only that, because of his passion for businesses and because of his passion for connecting government, the governmental order, with business, he seemed to me to be an ideal candidate. He represents, in some of his non-business activity, a whole lot of businesses who are concerned about what goes on with our city and with our EDC. So I appoint Kevin Plunkett to the EDC board position place 4. Is there a motion to accept?
I move for approval of Kevin Plunkett for place 4 on the EDC board.
Any discussion? And let's call the roll on this election.
Councilmember Schiff?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem De La Rosa?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
All right, that's a 4-0 vote. Thank you very much. I am very confident that Mr. Plunkett will serve admirably on this board. D14 is consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding the approval of an interlocal agreement between Bastrop County and the City of Bastrop regarding the Disaster Recovery Grant Program. Ms. Waldron.
This is just the interlocal agreement, the formal agreement between us and the county that establishes the amount of the grant for the shelter and also the instrument in which we can get reimbursed as we proceed with the project.
So, Morgan, let me ask you a question on this. I know we've got something that's been sitting on the city manager's desk for quite a while, where we have to sign something to get to the county judge. Is this it, or is there something else that we've discovered on that? We haven't located that. Okay, well, we need to get that. So this will be connected with that whole thing. You need to turn your mic on when you talk. You're on television all over who knows where. So you're going to look for it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But this is a little different, but related.
Right.
Okay. Questions?
I move that we approve the interlocal agreement as written.
Second.
Is any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Is there anyone opposed? No, it's a 4-0 vote. Thank you, Tracy. Have I forgotten anything else on the agenda? Thank you for your confidence. Bastrop City Council will meet in a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551 and Sec 2, to discuss the following. Section 551, 071-1, A-B, and Section 551, 071-2, consultation with attorney concerning 1, potential pending, threatened, and/or contemplated litigation, claims, and/or settlement mediation, including but not limited to the following: municipal water supply, pending and/or potential code enforcement litigation related to subdivision development, and/or 2, matter upon which the attorney has a privilege, duty, and responsibility, and/or responsibility pursuant to the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas to report to the government body concerning these matters and or other matters posted on the agenda. We're in executive session. Thank you.
Send me a postcard.
Bastrop City Council will return to our regular session. Mr. Townsend, we have anything we need to bring out of the session? Mr. Del Rocha, you got a motion? Mr. Peterson, you got a motion? You got a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Anybody got a second? Oh, there you go. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed no. It's a 4-0 vote. We're adjourned.
You're not going to lose.